Welcome to the art exhibit and meet the artist for Iva Nash. Iva Nash's work is on display at the Myra E. Oberndorf Central Library throughout the month of June 2022. I'm Sandy Hopkins, librarian for Adult Services in Programming and Community Outreach for the Virginia Beach Public Library. Robert Kennedy is the volunteer art gallery coordinator for the Myra E. Oberndorf Central Library. Robert, please introduce our artist.
Thanks, Sandy, and welcome to all. We're very pleased to be joined by photographer Iva Nash. Majoring in painting, Iva Nash received her Bachelor of Arts degree from Virginia Commonwealth University and a master's degree from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro in public administration. She's attended workshops at the Campbell Folk Art School in North Carolina, as well as photography workshops at the Hermitage in Norfolk, Virginia, and the Center for Photography in Woodstock, New York. Iva taught art at public schools in Fairfax County, Stafford County, and Virginia Beach, where she served as president of the Virginia Beach Education Association. Iva's interest in photography began in childhood with a Brownie camera, taking photos of subject matter her family considered weird. She renewed her interest in photography about 20 years ago, and her first serious camera was a 35mm Pentax. Originally using photographs as a basis for painting, she increasingly shifted toward photography as an art and currently uses an Nikon D5500 digital. In her photography, as with her painting, Iva strives for good composition that suggests narrative or encourages contemplation about the subject matter. Iva's work has been accepted at various galleries and photographic centers across the United States. Welcome, Iva. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Robert, for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to show my photography. Here's something I found on the internet about the difference between film photography and digital, because there is a big difference. Most people believe that digital is a lot easier, and with the film photography, you have to use chemicals, and it's a little bit more complicated. So I just thought I would put this on here as a general information. This is a picture I took of a statue of an Egyptian. Actually, it was an Egyptian pharaoh. But when I started messing around with it, I thought, this looks more like an Egyptian princess. So I printed out the image, and then I thought this needs a little bit more to make it look a little more rich. So I wove in some ribbon and glued on some other ribbon, and I thought it turned out, actually I really liked it. And this was a picture I had taken at a workshop I took in North Carolina. And we went to a market, and these were these shoes that were sitting on for sale, these old shoes. And again, this was a film picture I took with I think it was a Canon camera, and I scanned it. I took the negative, scanned it, and then I messed around with it a little bit with Photoshop, and I came up with this. Again, I think this is pretty interesting. Something a little different. This is another film picture I took. As you can see, Kodak on either side of my son, and he was eating it was taken from another negative. He was eating a strawberry, I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, so I took this picture of him, I scanned it again, and then I messed around with it on Photoshop, and I came up with this. This is a picture I took at my cousin's. Used to be my uncle's farm, and it was my cousin. Now it's my cousin's son's farm. And I thought it kind of had an old landscape kind of effect. And I did a little work with Photoshop, but not a whole lot. This is pretty much the way it turned out. We went to a Washington Nationals game, and our seats were right above the bullpen. And I had my camera with me, and I looked down with my camera, and on these empty seats, I loved the way it looked when I printed it out. And I submitted it to the International Color Awards contest, and actually it won first place for an amateur. This is pretty simple. It's beautiful iris. I really got close to the iris, took the picture, and did a little work on Photoshop, but not a whole lot. This was a photo taken at Sandbridge, visiting a friend, and looked out on the sand fences. I think that's what they're called. I don't really know what they're called. And I love the way that the shadows and the fences and everything appeared as the sun started to go down. This was a picture. We were in New York. This is a picture of these people that were sitting across the subway tracks from us. I mean, they just looked so tired and so worn out and so ready to go home. I just thought that this was a great picture, and if you could tell a whole bunch of stories about this. This was another picture I took one day. It had rained. This was in the winter. It had rained. I was going around the yard, just poking my camera around wherever, and I looked down, and the rain had frozen a puddle. I mean, the puddle had frozen, and then you had this grass that was frozen also, but it wasn't part of the puddle. And you look down and you could see the reflection of the clouds in the puddle. And I thought, that's pretty interesting. And that's another one I thought was pretty interesting. And it also was recognized by the New York Center for Photographic Art in New York City. It was in a gallery of theirs. This is near where I live, and it's the point. I live in Thalia. It's the point down there. It was a foggy, wintry autumn day, and that's, a fairly simple description, like the texture. This was a picture I took at the Boardwalk Art Show here in Virginia Beach. Thought these women sitting there and all these artists and all these people passing by. I thought that looked, it interested me, and I like composition, and I like taking pictures of people. So that's this one. We took a trip down the Danube, and we stopped off in Hungary one night. And this was the Parliament building, the Budapest Parliament building. And on Photoshop, I added some color and played around with the composition. And I mean, this is what it looks like, other than some color that I added. We were in Prague, and we were walking to eat dinner, and these Hare Krishnas passed by us, the tambourines and everything, and I hadn't seen Hare Krishna people in years, so this totally amazed me. So I took a picture of them, and you can see the light shining through. It was late afternoon, and I caught on the fronts of their outfits, their costumes, their dress. And this won third place in a International Color Awards. Simple seagull. I got down on the ground and took a picture of this seagull. This is the subway. This is the Oculus, the totally rebuilt subway station in Manhattan, in New York City, where 9/11 occurred, the Twin Towers. And I looked up and I saw, I had a black and white of this, but I thought I liked that better. But then I looked at the color one and I liked the color one better. And this again is at the Ground Zero, and this is where this is the memorial there. It was fall, and I didn't do much to change this one either. I thought this was just a really nice composition. This was one that took several years ago. We were going to Roanoke on 64. I think it was Christmas Eve, or maybe it was New Year's Eve. Anyway, we stopped. We were driving down 64, and as we approached this, I said, "Oh, stop the car. I'm going to take a picture of this." And got out of my car, took a picture. It used to be, when we passed that way, it used to be a bunch of apple trees or some kind of peach trees or something. And then I noticed they had changed it to this. And it looks like they were getting ready to start a winery. So, and this was, it's in a little book, The Nature of Trees, from the Photo Place Gallery in Vermont. And here's just what I think is I don't have any particular interest in doing a series of, at least not at this point, of one particular thing. It's just I take pictures of whatever interests me, or whatever I think is good compositionally, or whatever I think could make one feel something. And I just added this at the end of the slide as a point of interest also. And thank you very much for viewing.
Thanks very much, Iva. That was really wonderful. And eclectic is a great title, because I was blown away by the variety in the subject matter, and also your approach, the technique.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And this is going to be a great in-gallery show. So hopefully everyone in the area, Hampton Roads area, can stop by. Because you take shots of so many things, do you have what sort of thing catches your eye? Or it seems like many things do. And
I think what catches for one thing, I do like to take pictures of people. I like to paint. When I paint, I usually paint people also. I mean, they're not portraits, they're people involved in activities or doing something that one would normally do in one's regular world. And so and then I also look for composition, and the one image of the bullpen seats, that's what interested me. Also, I'm sure, empty bullpen, it's just something about, you don't really see empty bullpen seats when you go to a game. You usually see people down there. So, it's just a variety of what I see, how I interpret it, how you might interpret it. It's, there's nothing really magical about it. It's just who I am.
okay, well, great. Well, the result is magical. Do you often do you take more than one shot? Do you take many shots, or does that also vary?
No, I usually just get one shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And deciding to Photoshop. Now, some of your shots have very limited, it seems like, and others a lot. Do you decide, I guess, when you get into the computer and looking at it?
Yeah, and it's sort of creative. When I started I was always interested in photography, and when I went to VCU, and back in the '60s, and when I was in art education, I was a fine arts major, and I wanted to take a photography course, but they wouldn't let people take photography courses unless you were enrolled in their commercial art program. So, I kind of then focused mainly on painting, and I think I sort of look at these pictures with sort of maybe a painter's eye. And so then I got back into it, especially after I retired. I got really back into it. But I've been taking pictures off and on, photos off and on forever.
Oh, yes, I can really, now that you mention that, I can really see the influence of your painterly approach and the skill set that you brought from that. Are you still painting, by the way?
Yes,
Okay, great. Very good. Well, maybe we'll get to see some of those someday.
not as much.
And your very first photograph that you showed was a mixed media.
Mhm.
Have you done any more of that, or have you ever thought of, if not going in that direction a little more?
Yeah, I thought about going in that direction. I've kind of been looking at some things to see what, I mean, you can't do that with everything.
Sure.
So it has to be, so I've been trying to get back into it to see if there's something. I did have something that I had started when I was looking for stuff for the show. I had something that I had started, but I just didn't have time to finish it. So,
Okay.
and then I have done some mixed media as far as building with my, like with
Painting
with
side of
real
things.
materials, that rather not pictures, but with wood and things like that.
Okay, great. Wow, incredibly creative. That is really good. Now,
Thank you.
for the photographs, do some photographers have a preferred surface that they print on? Others, it's a variety. How about
No,
you?
I mean, it's I didn't have it in this slide presentation, but I think at least one of the images, one of the framed images I'm going to bring up here to the library is one I did on watercolor paper.
Oh, wow, that's great. That's good. And the others are on,
Regular photo paper.
okay, very, very
I
good.
think most of them are, yeah.
hmm Okay. Well, do you have any advice for aspiring photographers, whether, at whatever age they are, getting, starting the craft of art of photography?
Just do it and just take your pictures. I don't always have my camera with me. So, I mean, some people will say, well, you need to take your camera with you everywhere. Well, I don't always take my camera with me. So if you don't, don't worry about it. Just when you do take your camera, make sure that you looking around for potential masterpieces
Mhm.
and then snap away.
Well, great, great. Well, again, Iva, it's a wonderful slideshow, and it's going to be magnificent in the gallery.
Thank you.
And yes, we hope you all can join us. Iva's show starts in the Virginia Beach Central Library Gallery on June 1st, 2022. And there's also a reception open to the public, 6 p.m. on Wednesday, June 8th. So we hope you can join us and then join us again next month for another Meet the Artist. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.